What's going on? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next we are going to go over a tip or a method that you can use to find some pretty good deals on comics, and I'm going to go over how I use that to pick up some great books at some great prices, so stay tuned. All right, so before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. So this is actually some books that I picked up as part of that building a comic business starting with just $300. So I had a pretty good chunk of money available after that last video that I made that I had available to spend on comics, and I used all of that plus another sale that I had to make these two purchases for that comic business that I'm building as part of the channel. Now, I often have people ask me where they can find comics, where they can buy comics, and I know they're looking for ways to, get books at those deals. And it does take a lot of time and effort, to try to find these types of deals, that kind of thing. But this is a method that I think is pretty effective, and you can find some good deals, but there are also some risks to it. I've shown that in prior videos. I'll talk about kind of some of those risks that can be in this as well. But what I'm talking about is buying books in lots. So it's really kind of like buying mini collections. This is where something like, say, an auction house, it could be somebody selling them on eBay as well, but generally what I'm talking about here is an auction house like I've seen this on My Comic Shop, I've seen this on Heritage, I've seen it on, I think, Hakes, and maybe Comic Connect and a couple other places where they'll package together a bunch of books into one lot that's being sold. And sometimes you can get those books for a pretty good price per book. And there's two ways that you can end up using that. If this is something where you're trying to get inventory for a business, I've seen people that buy these lots and use that to sell on places like Whatnot and that kind of thing. But if you're using it for inventory for a business, that's one way that you can do it. The other way you can use it is if you are interested in maybe one or a couple books that are in that lot. Then you can take the rest of the books you're not interested in, sell them, and you're lowering the effective purchase price of that book that you got. Maybe you even make it so you got it for free, or maybe you even make a little profit off of it. And so basically you were paid pretty much to take those books. So there are some risks to it, because a lot of times when you're buying these lots, you don't get to see pictures of everything. You're basically given a description of what's in the lot. Usually it tells you every issue, but not always. If you're buying like a full long box or short box, it's not going to give you the description of every book. But you're just going to have kind of like some general grades. It might say the average grade is, VG or VF. And so that means some of the books are going to be better, some of the books are going to be worse. And so you don't always know what you're getting. You're also trusting that person on their grading. So I have had times where I've had lots that have said, they're VG or VG fine or whatever, and I get them and they are worse. So there's risks with it, but there can also be some pretty good rewards, because sometimes they undergrade too. And so and I've got some examples of that here where you can get some pretty awesome books for great prices. So for this specific example, these are two lots of books that I've picked up from Heritage. And Heritage has lots pretty regularly. They didn't used to have them very much, but when they really expanded their auctions maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, they added tons of raw books and they packaged them all together into these lots. And a lot of the times I ignore them, but every once in a while there are certain lots that catch my attention and I just watch them and I potentially bid on them. I bid on a bunch of them in this auction. I only won 2 though. So the 2 that I won are this lot of weird fantasy books. There are 7 books in this one. And then this lot here of weird science books, there are 8 books in this one. These are EC, pre-code sci-fi, sometimes a little bit of horror is in those, but pre-code sci-fi, pre-code horror lots. And the weird fantasy lot, I picked up this one for $523 for 7 books. So, I mean, that's like $75 a book for EC weird fantasy stuff. That's crazy. That's really a great price. And then the weird science one, for the 8 books, I won for $842. So $105 per book. So we're going to go through each one of these. I'll show you all the books and we'll talk about kind of like grades and values and everything. So let's start with the weird fantasy. The weird science has some awesome stuff in it. So make sure you stick through the video. And this is where you can kind of really see the risks and some of the rewards that can come with this. Because if you watched one of my prior videos, I bought a Fantastic Four lot from Heritage, and they ended up, I mean, they were sold as like a, I think average 4.5 or something, and oof, man, they were not. It was like an average of like a 2.5, and some of them worse than that. So there are risks that go with it, because you, like I said, you don't see all the pictures. At least on Heritage, you usually see 3 books. And so in this lot of 7 books of Weird Fantasy, I only saw 3 of them, and it's only part of the front covers. You're not seeing back covers or anything. So you're taking a little bit of a risk, but if you can get things for the right price, it can be worth it. And so that's one thing here. You want to be conservative. You want to generally assume that the books are overgraded, because you never know what you're going to get for sure. And you want to just make sure you're playing it safe on those purchases. And like I said, I've seen a couple people talk about buying these lots before. I saw Pop Comics, he bought some lots from Heritage recently, and then I've seen Dave with Comic Book Investments, he's talked about this, and about buying some lots and how sometimes you can find some books that are higher grades than their estimates. But this Weird Fantasy lot, actually all of these graded, except for one, below what they said. So this lot was supposed to all be 3.5s, an average of 3.5s. Now, there were a couple they gave some descriptions of flaws on that made them lower, but yeah, average of 3.5. But because I felt I was able to get them for such a great price, it didn't matter. So this first one here, Weird Fantasy number 15, cool kind of like dinosaur / monster, good girl art cover. But this is a Feldstein cover. You can see it's got his little mark there. So this one, when they don't give me any specific additional details about the damage to the book, I assume it's what their average is. And so they said a 3.5. I think this one is a 2.5 to a 3. I mean, it does present well, but it's got, a little chip here, some chips here, and the spine is a little rough. There's just a few little holes and things like that there. But still, this one, I estimate the value of this book at, on its own, $250. And so, the lot I got for $523. That's almost half the value of the lot right there in one book. So that's the first one. Then we have Weird Fantasy number 17. If you like these sci-fi dinosaur covers, I know Aaron AA Comics, he's a fan of these sci-fi type covers. The Weird Fantasy lot, or Weird Fantasy title, is really a place that you want to check out. But this one, again, they didn't have any notes about it, so 3.5, and I think this one is a 2.5 to a 3. It's detached at the bottom staple, a lot of wear on the spine, but it presents well. It's a solid presenting book, and this one, $175. So we're already up at $425 out of the $523, purchase price. Then the next one here, this is a pretty big one that was in here, even though it's low grade. This is Weird Fantasy number 18. This is one of the more expensive books in the run. It's just a really in-demand book with this Ray Bradbury story that's in it. And this one they had they said, I think it's like the whole spine is almost split or something like that. But they had it, basically I estimated as a 1 to a 1.5 based on their description. This one they had some extra details, and I agree with that. I think it's a 1 to a 1.5. This one I value at $250. So if you're keeping things, added together, we're already at $675, and that puts us already above what we paid for this entire lot. So yeah, so that one, I mean, again, this one presents really, really solid. It's just a lot of spine damage. That's really what a lot of these had, was a lot of spine damage. Then next one here, this is a pretty cool cover. This is a Joe Orlando cover. This is issue number 19. Now this one, again, they said that they had some descriptions of flaws. I think it was like detached cover, mostly split spine. And so I had it as a 1.5 from their estimate, and I agree. I agree that it's a 1.5. Again, a really nice presenting copy. This is kind of what you want to look for with lower grade books, is you want books that present well, that are complete, but spine wear, spine damage is something that really is hidden for the most part, and so you still have a really nice looking copy. So this one, I have it just $100, so just $100 for this one. Kind of a cool space monster cover. I don't want these to fall. All right, there's that one. And the next one, this one, at first when I took this book out, I was like, oh my gosh, this one's actually really nice. But the flaw, and they had this flaw described, I didn't know how big it was. And this is an example of what you can't really tell. So they said that there was chew on one of the corners, but I don't get to see the picture. So I don't really know how bad that chew is. This is Weird Fantasy number 19. And so you can see where I'm holding it. Looks really, really nice. And then we'll raise it up. And you can see there's that chew down here. So it doesn't get into the art. It's in the margins. So it's not like it's terrible. So I still have this one as a 3.0. And it's because this book presents so well otherwise. I'll actually even take this one out. Just because this one, it's just unfortunate that the mice or whatever got to this one, because this is a really solid presenting copy. I mean, look at this thing. I mean, it's got that chew down in the corner, but otherwise really, really nice copy. Back cover has that cool date stamp. It's up in the corner there, 1953. But again, there's that chew, and you can see, I mean, it's not even close to the art. It's way down in the margins. So there's no real concern about it affecting the story or anything like that. But it's there. And I mean, it's not a small amount of chew. I've had some with a little less than that get, I think, a 4.0. And so that's why I feel like I'm being a little conservative at a 3. I think maybe it would have a shot at a 3.5, but I think I'm being safe at a 3. But this one, even with that, $250 book. So right now we've had 3 $250 books. That's $750, a $100 book, $850, and a $175. That puts us at $1,025 already for this $523 purchase. That's what I was saying. This was a great purchase for that building a comic business. That's why I was really looking for lots to purchase with that money, because I know I can get potentially a lot more return on my investment if I buy a group of books. Now the last two are actually the same book, and then we'll go over the Weird Science. So these last two here are both Weird Fantasy number 22. I can't remember if this is the last issue of the run. It might be the last issue of the run. One of them is a lower grade than the other. So let's see. I think it's this one. Yeah. So, because one of them I think was like, yeah, it's this one, because it was detached. Still presents pretty well. I mean, again, like I said, most of these, that's what the flaw was. It was spine damage, but solid presenting copies. So I had this one as a 2.0 and just $100. So just $100 for that. And then the second one here, this was actually, I graded this the highest graded book out of all of these. I have this one as a 3.5 to a 4. And you can actually see just the difference in the color strike here. Like, look how bright, deep the reds are on this copy versus this copy. It's just this one on its own, it looks nice. But when you see it next to this copy, you're like, oh yeah, this one's definitely nicer. So 3.5 to a 4. This book doesn't really jump up in value all that much. It's a more affordable issue from this run. So even though I have this one as a 3.5 to a 4, I still just have it at $125. Maybe I could ask $150 because it does present really well, but I have it as $125. So for these 7 books, that was $523 that I spent for the 7 books. And my estimated value for all 7 is $1,250. So that is a pretty great return on the purchases. And that's great for that comic business. I'll have to get those books, all listed and everything like that. But that's the type of thing where, say there's maybe one of these books that you really wanted from this. Like, say you really wanted this Weird Fantasy 18. And so you pay $523 for everything. You sell everything but this one for $1,000. You have this book for free and an extra, after fees and everything, like maybe like $300. So that's one of the advantages that you can really do with lots. That's actually how I got one of my copies of Marvel Superheroes number 20, the Doom cover. It was in a lot with like 15 other books from that run, and that was the only one I wanted from that run. But I knew if I bought that lot, I basically got the lot for the cost of just that one book, and everything else I could just sell and reduce my cost into it. So that's one way that, if you're not talking about the business side of it, that's a way that you can really, look for books that you're interested in and decrease the cost that you have into that actual book. But you do have to actually go out and sell them. If you don't like selling, then that's not really going to work for you, and you'll just end up with a big pile of books. But yeah, that is a way to decrease the cost on a book. Now, this other lot here, this Weird Science lot, this one was exciting. This one turned out really, really well. So which, like I said, that does not always happen. I've had some misses when I buy these a lot, so there's always that risk. But this was 8 books, $842, so $105 per book. $100 a book for one of these these EC books is, I mean, that's a steal in my opinion. Now, this one, the really interesting thing with this was that there were 2 surprise books that were in here because they give the numbers. And if you're not familiar with the Weird Science run, it started at issue number 12. And so it went 12, 13, 14, 15, and then it jumped back to, I don't know what it is, like 7, and started up again. So you have 2 issue 12s, 2 issue 13s, 14s, and 15s. And usually if you have the early issues, so like this is the earlier one, this is the first 14. When that's listed for sale, it'll say 14, and then in parentheses after it will say 3. They didn't do that in this. So I couldn't see this book. This wasn't in the picture. So I assumed that this was the later 14. But when I got it, it was the earlier 14. And that makes a big, big difference. This book is worth a lot more than issue number 14 that comes later. So this one, they only had 2 books that they had different descriptions on. Again, these were all supposed to be VG minus or 3.5. So this one, I assumed a 3.5. When I saw it, I was like, I don't think that can get a 3.5 with this, but I think a 2.5 is still possible with this piece out, and there's a little piece out on the back. But a 2.5 of this book is worth $350. I had estimated originally just $150 because I thought it was the later issue 14. So already 350 out of the 842, and just a really cool Feldstein sci-fi cover. Again, it's got this little thing down here. But yeah, so that one, when I saw that, when I opened this up, I was really excited. And then there was another one. This is the early 15. Now, the early 15 and the later 15 are both pretty in-demand books. The later one is like this spaceship with a Tyrannosaurus Rex on the cover. A lot of people really like that cover too. So this one isn't quite as big of a difference in value, but I had estimated this. They said a 3.5. I said a 3.5 seems correct. It could maybe do better. This is a very solid presenting copy. I'll actually show this one because this is a really nice copy of this book. It's got some things going on. You know, it does have some creasing and stuff, like down there. Let's see here. Yeah, so it's got some creasing down in the corners. It would benefit from a press. The back really does need to be cleaned. You know, there's some dirt, that kind of stuff. But I think a 3.5 is a pretty respectable grade. I think, like I said, maybe it gets a 4. It would definitely, you know, benefit from a press. But yeah, so this one I have at $275. So that's the second one. So you can see, like, out of that $842 purchase, just with the first 2 books, we are already at $625. So we have almost got, out of the 8 books, we've almost got our cost out of 2 books. Now the next one is issue number 7. So this is when the numbering jumps back. So this is actually later than those first 2 issues, even though it has an earlier number. This one is nice. This one I have estimated as a 5.0. So this is one of those examples where they had the 3.5 as the average grades for these books, and you've got some that are much nicer. And in this case, this one is a 5.0. There is one other in here that's pretty nice too. I'll just give you, kind of show you. Actually, this is a really solid copy. There's a couple little things going on, like a few creases and some bends to the cover, but yeah, really, really respectable copy and nice presenting copy of this book. And so at a 5.0, I had estimated the value based on a 3.5 originally, and so I thought this one would be worth $200, but at a 5.0, I say it is worth $300. So we are already over the cost for these books. We're at $925. So we're at $925 in value after 3 books out of 8. Next one. This is such a cool cover. This one, they said the cover was detached, but it's actually not. So that was interesting. So this is issue number 9. I mean, the colors on this, they don't even look like they're from this time period. This looks like something that would have been printed recently. Super, super bright colors. It is detached at the bottom, and at the top, it's detached from the front cover, but not from the back cover. It is actually still attached to the back cover. You know, it's one of those things where it's like it's barely holding on, you know, like it's just attached at one point out of a possible 4, but it is attached. So I have this one as a 2 to a 2.5, and the value of this book I have at $300. I mean, just an incredible copy of this book in terms of presentation. Just awesome colors. But yeah, it has those flaws on the spine like a lot of the books in these lots did. Next we have number 11. So this one, again, they had it as a 3.5 because that was the estimate, and I think this one is a 4.5 to a 5. Again, another one that is just, it's much nicer than what the average estimate for the group of books was. And so again, you know, just a really solid copy. I mean, yeah, you've got a few little creases and things like that, but I mean, it's not a 9.8, right? That's what I was saying. It's a 4.5 to a 5. Again, the back has some dirt, could benefit from, you know, from being cleaned. But yeah, really solid copy of this one. And at a 4.5 to a 5, I have this one at $375. So if you're adding things up, you can tell that we are well above the initial, or the cost of the $842 of this set of books. All right, now number 12. Now this one I want to talk about a little bit because this one I see some problems with pricing on this book. So this is the second number 12. This is the one where the run actually starts with Weird Science number 12. This is not that one. This is the later issue. It would have been crazy if it would have been the first one because that's a super expensive book. But you have to be careful when you're on like claim sales, live claim sales, that kind of thing. I have seen multiple live claim sales where they have this book for sale and they have priced it using the data from the earlier copy, which is a much more expensive book. So don't let that happen to you where you know, somebody puts this book up and prices it like the earlier number 12. It is not that. So I have seen that on multiple occasions, and that would, I mean, you're going to lose a lot of money real quick that way. But this one isn't in as nice of condition. I think I remember there was like a tear on the back. I think it's attached, but not real well. So I have this one as a 2.5, but at a 2.5, it's still a $200 book. But if this was the earlier number 12, much more expensive book. But yeah, so cool, like kind of like space dog cover. Then next we've got 2 more left. We have number 18. So this one they said was completely split, cover detached. So I estimated this one would be a 1.0 based on what they described. And after getting it, it's a 0.5 to a 1.0. It might get a 1.0. There's a pretty good chance at a 0.52. It's complete, but there's a huge tear that goes almost across the whole cover, like right, there's it here to here. And I think then the spine is completely split. There was a ton of tape on here, but it was actually already falling off, so I just removed it. It was actually causing some problems when in the bag because the tape was so old. It was sticking to the bag and pulling on it. And so there had been tape along the entire spine here, but I took it all off. I left these 2 pieces on here. They were still holding on strong enough. But that tape, you can tell, is so old, it didn't even do anything to the color on the book. Still looks great. But yeah, this one, this one's in rough shape. I mean, you can see the back too. Like that piece there on the bottom's almost falling off, but it's all here. It's complete. You know, it's still like this colors still look fine and everything. And it's still a complete EC book. And so for this one, I have it as just $100. You know, but yeah, I thought this one was interesting just because it had all that tape on there. And the first time I tried to take it out of the bag, it had stuck to it and it pulled on the cover some. And I was like, what is going on? But yeah, I was able to just take it all off. Looks much better now without all that tape that was there.
A few moments later.
And in case you're wondering, this is how that tape turned out, you know, however many years later. It just super yellowed and it just lost all its adhesiveness and just, you know, kind of came right off. All right, now the last book here. This is actually a pretty big book from the run as well. This is Weird Science number 19. And this is one of the books that was used in Seduction of the Innocent. And this is one where you can see it's more than just the sci-fi. This is also, I would call it like a pre-code horror type cover. You've got this astronaut that's body is just, I mean, you wouldn't decay out in space, but his body seems to have decayed out in space. But yes, pretty gross cover, but was used in Seduction of the Innocent, which was the book or report that was written that helped really enforce or put in place the Comics Code Authority on comics. And so this one has some additional importance to it. Again, they had it as a 3.5. I said it was a 3. The bottom staple is detached. It is still attached to the top. There's, again, just a lot of spine wear, but a solid presenting copy of this book. But this is a pretty pricey book. I have it at $275, and you know, it's just part of that. The SOTY books, the Seduction of the Innocent books, tend to be a little more expensive. So if we are adding all that up, we are now at $2,175 for these 8 books. These 8 books from this Weird Science run, you know, picked up for $842, and then adding them all together, their total value $2,175. And so that's why this is one of those things that I was looking for as part of this building a comic business purchase, because I'm looking for books that have a potential larger return, so I can then move them and move on to bigger and bigger books. And this is one of the types of purchases that helps get me there. So hopefully this was a helpful video for you, so you can kind of see some of the risks and benefits that can come from buying these lots. You've got some books that end up being well below what the the grade estimate is from the seller, and you have some books that can end up being better, that are better than that grades, and those can be books that you get wins on. But yeah, this is definitely an example of one where, I mean, if you really wanted that Seduction of the Innocent book, you get this book and then you sell everything else. If you're not interested in anything else that's in that, then you get, you know, that book for free, and then you also have a bunch of money left over afterwards. You just have to put in the, you know, the legwork selling through the books. But I just think it's a really good option to consider if you're looking for inventory, because sometimes they'll sell like full short boxes or long boxes. So if you're looking for inventory, or if there is a specific book you're interested in, buying these lots to try to basically get that book for less. Now, there are a lot of times that I've seen people pay more than what these books are actually worth for when they buy those lots. I have seen that happen a lot. So you do have to be cautious. Don't let, you know, the bidding get too exciting, and then you start to keep bidding on things like you really wanted. I had to pass on a number of lots. There were a bunch of other EC lots that were like for Tales from the Crypt, and I think like Vault of Horror and Haunt of Fear and that kind of thing. Those all went really, really high. So I didn't end up picking up any of these, but felt like these 2 lots went for great prices. So I'm really happy I got them. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Again, learned something useful maybe to help with your own collection purchases or building a business, that type of stuff. If you did, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. I've got more videos over here if you'd like to watch some of my other videos, and the subscription button right here. Click subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.